Hey everybody, it's Trigger Bar Philosopher. Welcome back out to the channel. Today we have an exciting episode. I'm not sure quite how it's going to turn out, but we're going to be testing 45 ACP versus 300 Blackout. Now I know, hold on, you got to wait till we see the testing. Let's get going. Okay, so Trigger Bar, what on earth are you talking about? Well, yeah, so I have my Daniel Defense 300 Blackout. Is a 10.5-inch barrel. So some of the specs for the subsonic 300 Blackout, around 1,000 feet per second, are going to be optimistic with this barrel. It's probably going to be much lower than that. And we're going to test it against a regular 45 ACP. So we have a 300 Blackout OTM versus a hollow point, jacketed hollow point, and 45 ACP. I don't really know what's going to happen. We're going to see. I've heard lots of people say, hey, what's the difference? And we're going to be testing it at self-defense ranges. And we're going to see what, these kind of 2 rounds do in gel. And then we're going to also get them up on the lab radar. We're going to see what type of performance, so we know what type of comparison we have. Okay, so first up, we're going to be shooting this AAC Precision 220 grain OTM subsonic round. And so, yeah, we're going to be shooting it in the gel block. Let's get to shooting. We're going to put our first round into the gel. All right, see how it did. All right, so let's just take a look at this gel block. We can see that we had some penetration and maybe to about the 8 or 9 inch mark. And then we see that the round escapes out the side of the block, unfortunately. At first I thought this bigger permanent wound cavity, there was actually some fragmentation and other things, but this is not fragmentation. That's just where there was some tumbling that occurred, again, at that 8 or 9 inch mark, maybe 9.5 inches. And then the round, took a sharp left turn and escaped out of the block. So later in the testing, we're going to come back to it and we are going to take a look and see if we can get the round in another place so that we can get a better capture of this round. Okay, so next up, we have our Colt government model Series 70. So we have some 230 grain AAC jacketed hollow point, and that is compared with some 220 grain OTP, both from AAC. But let's see what the difference is and let's see if we can tell. Okay, let's just take a look at that. There isn't much of a wound cavity to speak of. Kind of just went straight to the 16-inch mark, and then there is our round. So we didn't particularly get a lot of expansion. I would say that is an underperforming round. And that's not even with denim or anything clogging it up. I would say, yeah, that is underperforming. So, but we can see we pretty much have a 0.45 or probably 0.5 wound cavity going through there versus in that other round from the 300 Blackout, we see a little bit more cavitation, a little bit more, maybe not expansion, but we have a little bit more tumbling, and permanent wound channel gets a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm going to make a quick direction. I thought there was a bullet in there, and there is not. There is nothing in there. There may be some petals. So we lost that bullet. I'm going to shoot one more time, try and figure out what happens if we can retain it. It made a left-hand turn and came out of the gel. Okay, we've got one more round of the 300 Blackout. Let's see if we can get one that doesn't curve out of the gel block. We captured that one. You see the bullet came in, did hardly anything, and then it really, I think what happened was it really started tumbling at this sort of 11, 10, 11, 12, 9, 10, 11, 12 inch mark. That tumbling occurred for maybe 3.5, 4 inches. And then it went through. We got very little to no expansion with that OTP bullet. Let me pull that out. Let's take a look. We got 0 expansion with that OTP. This is the 220 grain OTP versus the 230 grain AAC. Well, look, if you're going to get tumbling in that, then I think the tumbling is going to be more devastating in the round. And I suspect, given that oblong shape, that's something that's probably going to happen. But in terms of size of hole, the 45 ACP is going to do better. This one went longer, but that kind of makes sense because it didn't have any expansion at all. So it probably went a couple of inches longer. Remember, the 45 ACP went all the way through to the end of our 16-inch gel block, and this other one went maybe another 2 or 3 inches before it stopped. So very similar penetration, very different wound channels. Again, just taking a look at the two, one there and one there, versus just a very straight line. You can see this is that very straight, basically just a 0.45 inch diameter hole. So just doing some very crude measurements, it looks like that bullet is very close to, 0.6, 0.75, somewhere in that land, depending on how good and accurate you could get it. So it did get some decent expansion, just not a whole lot. So a little bit disappointing there. And then 0 expansion with this. Well, we're just going to do some lab radar testing with this 220 grain OTM. It's our subsonic round. So let's see if we can capture it. 843. 849. 805. I'd take the suppressor off while we're getting this, otherwise the lab radar gets a little wonky with it. So let's just take a look at the add-up. For the averages, sorry, I'm running low on some of this ammunition, so I only had 3 rounds right now. So the average was 832, and the standard deviation is 23.7, a high of 849, a low of 805. I'll put up in the, I think it's the upper, my left, your right-hand corner, the energy foot-pounds. Now let's move on to the 45 ACP. Okay, we have about 5 rounds at the 45 ACP. We are going to, it's their XTP 230 grain. We're going to see what we can get on the lab radar. 877. Missed it. 880. 878. 888. All right, let's just see what our little group there tells us. All right, as we can see from the add-up, we had a high of 880, a low, or sorry, an average of 880, a high of 888, a low of 877. So that actually had a 4.6 standard deviation with 5 shots. So it did capture the 5 shots. So that's pretty nice. That's pretty impressive standard deviation. But in terms of hollow point expansion, it's probably not going fast enough. This is a 5-inch model, so I would say that that's what it's supposed to get. So that's not great performance out of this 45 ACP. All right, so let's just wrap things up here a little bit. I thought this might be a fun little video where we're comparing 45 ACP to 300 Blackout subsonics. Maybe something that you aren't really always comparing, but I think the comparison comes in, not that these 2 rounds are equivalent, but that when you are making decisions about which round to choose for your home defense round and which platform to choose, I think it's useful to do some ballistic comparisons. Now, I think the 45 ACP was pretty awesome. I think that this cartridge from AAC is not. I think that, having that larger size diameter hole going through the body, especially when we're talking about subsonic rounds versus the 30 cal, there are some benefits to having that much bigger bullet. And that got out to, 0.7 of an inch or something like that versus the 0.3 inches from the 300 Blackout round. So a bunch of things to consider. I think another thing to consider is, while this rifle platform versus a pistol platform, which is easier to have in the house, a pistol you can conceal maybe just a little bit better. A rifle will give you a more sturdy firing platform, and you'll be able to get more accurate shots on target, which is always something that we want, especially when we're considering home defense. Another thing to remember is, let's say, these subsonic rounds don't do the damage that you're expecting. The benefit of the 300 Blackout rifle is you can then follow it up with 110 grain, 125 grain ammunition that's going to have the same characteristics as an AK-45, which I think, have the same characteristics of an AK-47. So I think that there are some benefits to this. It's like, look, you could have some subsonic rounds loaded up, the first 3 or 4 that are very hearing safe. But then after that, if push comes to shove and you're not stopping the threat that's in your home, you may need to go to full rifle cartridges. And that's something that the 300 Blackout gives you over a 45 ACP type platform. So let me know what you guys think. If this is a video that was useful, would you like to see more of these types of comparisons? Would you like to see more 300 Blackout gel tests, more 45 ACP gel tests? Let me know what you guys think. Please put comments below about your thoughts on these platforms for home defense. And also please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Hope everyone has a fantastic week, and let's get to shooting.